Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another wild ride through Reddit's craziest stories. Today, we've got a story so messy, so dramatic, you won't believe how it all went down. Imagine finding out your marriage is over through a Reddit thread. Yeah, it's that insane. This one's got everything: neglect, in laws from hell, and a husband who spends more time rating strangers online than paying attention to his own wife. It's the kind of story that makes you rethink relationships entirely. So grab a snack, get comfy, and let's dive into the madness. And hey, before we start, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers, and every single one of you makes that possible. All right, let's get into it. And am I the asshole for letting you know I am divorcing you by sending you a thread on the website that you used to ignore me? Tiny update. Stefan has seen this post. He is mad that apparently one of you found him based on the rate my boobs thing. He has deleted his account. For any purposes, I want to clarify that I left out any actual incriminating information that could lead to doxing him. Any and all people who are pretending to know me or have any incriminating information about me are lying. I am not from South Carolina, I am not moving in with any other guy, and I am also not sleeping around. Hi, Stefan. Maybe you will finally listen. And if you're wondering if you can just speed home and stop me from doing this and leaving, it's too late. I'm sending you this after I've already loaded everything in the car and left. Don't worry. I spoke with our landlords and took my name off the lease. I've set up a direct deposit for the next month's rent. After that, you're on your own, buddy. I guess you're wondering why. I'm guessing you'll act like you're completely blindsided, right? Because you've done absolutely nothing wrong, and you're a great husband and father-to-be, aren't you? Well, buddy, let me break it down for you in a language you understand. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, 35M, for 5 years, and we've been together for nearly 10. On paper, everything seemed fine, but in reality, our marriage has been anything but. I've reached my breaking point, and I need to know if I'm the one in the wrong here. From the beginning, my Mael has been a nightmare. She made everything about her from day one. At our wedding, she wore white, claiming it was a family tradition. It wasn't. She constantly criticizes me, from my cooking to my appearance. I'll never forget the time she called me fat at a family gathering, right in front of everyone. And what did my husband do? Nothing. Not a single word to defend me. It didn't stop there. She has accidentally destroyed my belongings, including my grandmother's necklace, which she threw out because it looked like cheap costume jewelry. She's gone out of her way to make me feel small and unwelcome in my own home. But every time I tried to talk to my husband about it, he'd brush it off, saying I was overreacting or being too emotional. And then there's my husband. He's always on Reddit, constantly giving strangers relationship advice, which is laughable considering how he treats me. He spends more time rating women's boobs on Reddit than talking to me. Literally. And just so you know, the last pair he rated weren't a 4 out of 10. They were a 10 out of 10. Yeah, he's got plenty of time to do that, but can't be bothered to remember anything about my life. He'll forget my birthday, our anniversary, even simple things like what I'm working on or what's important to me. But he has a perfect memory for his work schedule and things that matter to him. When we fight, he becomes incredibly hostile and always throws in a sarcastic buddy at the end of his sentences, like I'm some acquaintance he can barely tolerate. And he never cleans. The house, the dishes, laundry, you name it, it's all on me. It's like he thinks being an adult is optional, as long as he's got his job and his Reddit account. The final straw came a few weeks ago. I'm 5 months pregnant with our first child, a daughter. My MIL started making comments about how she'll have to whip the girl into shape and how she'll raise her to be tough because I'm too soft. When I told my husband that I didn't want his mother to have too much influence on our daughter, especially with the way she treats me, he just laughed it off, saying his mother means well and that I was overthinking it. But the moment that truly broke me was when we were talking about future childcare, and my husband suggested that his mother should watch our daughter while we work. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that, especially considering how his mother treats me, and he snapped. He called me paranoid and said I should get over it because his mother was going to be a big part of our daughter's life, whether I liked it or not. This is the same woman who believes corporal punishment is okay. I've seen her hit my husband's nephew for the smallest things, and no one does anything about it. It's like they're all living in some kind of cult, and I'm finally waking up to the reality of what's going on. If he wouldn't stand up for me, how could I expect him to stand up for our child? I started to fear for what kind of environment our daughter would grow up in, a place where she might be belittled or bullied by her own grandmother, with a father who wouldn't do anything to stop it. Oh, and did I mention that he missed our first ultrasound? His mother needed him to help her with something urgent. It turned out to be fixing her Wi-Fi. He chose that over seeing our daughter for the first time. That told me everything I needed to know about where I stand in his life. So I packed up and left. I'm done living like this. Oh, and in case you're wondering, I've already contacted a lawyer. You can't scare me into complying anymore because I have all those texts. You know exactly which ones I'm talking about. So, Stefan, I wish you all the best in your future marriage, with your mother and the women of Reddit whose boobs you don't even deserve. Am I the asshole for leaving my husband after he neglected me for years, let his mother mistreat me, and made me fear for our future daughter's safety? AITA for telling my sister she's not allowed to bring her homemade food to Thanksgiving because her cooking is ruining the meal? Every year, our family does a big Thanksgiving dinner, and we all typically bring a dish or two. My sister, who's a lovely person in every other way, insists on cooking something homemade every time. The issue? She's not a great cook. And I don't mean just not great. I mean she has somehow managed to turn classic dishes into borderline inedible creations. For context, last Thanksgiving, she showed up with her special recipe stuffing that was over-seasoned with random spices like cinnamon and cardamom. It was dry and the flavors were confusing and totally off for stuffing. Only one person took a small bite and the rest went untouched. Another year, she brought a green bean casserole that had some kind of strange, chewy texture. She later admitted she used coconut milk and almond flour to experiment. No one wanted seconds of that either. This year, I'm hosting Thanksgiving. Since I'm responsible for putting it all together, I wanted to keep the menu consistent so that people could actually enjoy a cohesive meal. I thought I'd avoid drama by asking her to bring non-food items instead, like wine, soda, or even some flowers. I explained to her, very kindly I thought, that I just wanted to make things easy and streamlined, and I'd handle the main dishes. But she didn't take it well. She got offended and told me I was being controlling and shutting her out of the family gathering. She then accused me of making her feel inadequate and said that Thanksgiving is about everyone contributing, not me deciding what's acceptable. I told her that everyone appreciates her effort, but that she could contribute in other ways and still be part of it. She doubled down and said she's bringing her famous green bean casserole whether I like it or not. Now, my mom and a couple of other family members have chimed in saying I should just let her bring whatever she wants because it's Thanksgiving and it's the thought that counts. They're acting like I'm committing some huge offense by wanting the food to be enjoyable for everyone and not have random experimental dishes that no one will eat. But I feel like I'm just trying to keep the meal enjoyable and, frankly, edible. I don't think it's wrong to want guests to actually enjoy the food, especially since I'm putting in a lot of effort to host. Am I really being unreasonable here? AITA? Update. All right, well, things have escalated fast. Thanks to everyone who offered advice. I tried to compromise, but it's already turning into a whole thing, and Thanksgiving is still a few weeks away. After our last conversation, my sister was being pretty cagey about what she planned to make, so I reached out to my mom, hoping she could help smooth things over. Instead, she got defensive, saying I'm overthinking and that it's just one dish. I told her I wasn't sure it was just one dish anymore, especially after hearing about my sister's grocery haul, including canned oysters and edible glitter. Then my mom let slip that my sister has been hard at work on some creative menu she's planning as her Thanksgiving surprise. Apparently, she's been telling the family group chat, which I wasn't included in, by the way, that I'm being controlling and that she wants to expand everyone's palate with something truly unique. To top it off, my cousin sent me a screenshot from the group chat where my sister said she's bringing not one, but 3 dishes to Thanksgiving now. She's calling them her Thanksgiving trio experience, complete with their own place settings and little menu cards she's designing. I'm officially panicking because I have no idea what she's planning to serve, and from what I've heard, it's not remotely traditional. At this point, half the family thinks I'm overreacting, while the other half is texting me with things like, is she really bringing glittered sweet potatoes? I feel stuck. If I try to control it anymore, I'm the bad guy. But if I don't, Thanksgiving might turn into a tasting event for my sister's avant-garde cooking. So yeah, Thanksgiving is weeks away, and it's already become a family spectacle. I don't know whether to brace myself or just preemptively order pizza. Update. AITA for telling my sister she's not allowed to bring her homemade food to Thanksgiving because her cooking is ruining the meal. Alright, so Thanksgiving is now just a little over 2 weeks away, and somehow things have escalated even further than I thought possible. I thought maybe my sister's Thanksgiving trio experience would be the peak of the drama. Well, turns out I was wrong. Since the last update, my sister has become fully committed to making her dishes the main attraction. She's been dropping hints in the family group chat, which I'm still not included in, but shout out to my cousin for the screenshots, about how this Thanksgiving will be one to remember, and calling it her Thanksgiving debut. She's apparently been referring to herself as the Thanksgiving head chef, and has hinted that she's bringing some kind of culinary surprise centerpiece that will transform the whole experience. From what I can piece together, she's planning a main statement dish in addition to her original 3 side dishes. I'm picturing something equally bizarre but on a much larger scale, and honestly, I'm terrified. If her green bean casserole was already pushing it, I can't even imagine what she thinks is worthy of being the centerpiece. Then, to make things even weirder, my mom texted me privately and suggested that I step back this year and let my sister shine since she's so excited about her contributions. My mom thinks if we just give her this moment, it'll make her happy and she'll get it out of her system. She even hinted that maybe I should focus on decorations and drinks instead of the main dishes, which feels like an attempt to turn hosting over to my sister without actually saying it. So now I'm left with a choice. 1, go along with my mom's plan and let my sister essentially hijack Thanksgiving. 2, keep pushing back and risk a full-on family showdown. I just wanted a nice Thanksgiving with dishes everyone would enjoy, but it seems like I'm either about to hand over the whole meal to her or prepare for some serious drama. Thanksgiving isn't even here yet, and it already feels like a circus. I'm half tempted to just sit back and see what chaos unfolds, but part of me is still worried about subjecting the whole family to whatever artistic statement she has planned. Update. AITA for telling my sister she's not allowed to bring her homemade food to Thanksgiving because her cooking is ruining the meal? Here we are, the day before Thanksgiving, and things have continued to spiral. I decided to let my sister move forward with her trio experience since pushing back more would only make things worse. I thought we had a plan. She'd bring her dishes, and I'd make sure there were plenty of other options to keep the peace. This morning, my mom let me know that my sister is now adding a surprise dish to her contributions. She's been very secretive about what it is, which has everyone nervous after her past attempts. My mom thinks it's sweet that my sister is putting in so much effort, but a few other family members are not as optimistic. My cousin texted me privately asking if I had backup food ready, and my dad casually mentioned bringing extra rolls, just in case. At this point, I've decided to stick with the plan and let her have her moment. I'll still have a few traditional dishes on hand so no one goes hungry. Tomorrow will probably be chaotic, but it should at least make for a memorable holiday. Wish me luck. I'll update after Thanksgiving if anything noteworthy happens. Final update. AITA for telling my sister she's not allowed to bring her homemade food to Thanksgiving because her cooking is ruining the meal. Thanksgiving dinner is officially over, and I genuinely don't know where to start. I feel like I just lived through a fever dream of culinary chaos and family drama, and I need a moment to breathe before I can even process everything. My cousin and I are heading out for drinks to dissect all of it because honestly, what just happened deserves its own Netflix special. I'll post photos later when I get home, but for now, let me try to give you the rundown. So, my sister showed up earlier than expected, which I should have seen coming. She came in like a storm, carrying not just her 3 dishes, but also this giant platter wrapped in foil, which she was clearly trying to make a big deal about. She immediately started rearranging the table, moving my dishes to the side so hers could take center stage. She even brought her own table runner and candles, saying something about setting the mood for a creative dining experience. I decided not to fight her on it because at this point, I just wanted to get through the night without a blow-up. Her trio experience was, well, let's just say it was everything I feared and more. She started with a glittery sweet potato mash that somehow managed to taste like a mix of sugar and sand. The glitter wasn't even edible glitter, it was craft glitter, which I didn't realize until one of the kids said, "This is crunchy," and I looked closer. Then there was the cranberry and oyster relish. Yes, oysters and cranberries. It looked like someone had spilled jam into clam chowder, and the smell alone was enough to make me lose my appetite. Finally, she brought a pumpkin curry casserole that had raisins in it for some reason, and this weird fishy smell that clung to the air for way too long. But the pièce de résistance was her surprise centerpiece dish, which turned out to be a turkey gelatin mold. Yes, she took ground turkey, mixed it with some kind of broth and seasonings, and turned it into a wobbly, translucent mold shaped like a turkey. She even garnished it with parsley and cherry tomatoes to make it festive. I wish I were kidding. The entire table went silent when she unveiled it, except for my cousin, who immediately started coughing to cover up what I'm pretty sure was a laugh. Things hit their peak when my mom, who has been defending her this entire time, took one bite of the gelatin mold and just froze. She didn't say anything, but you could see the regret on her face. My sister, noticing the lack of enthusiasm, decided to go on this long speech about how Thanksgiving food is too boring and how she's trying to challenge our palates. She even called my ham and mashed potatoes uninspired, which was rich coming from someone serving glitter sand potatoes. The breaking point came when my aunt, who's usually the peacekeeper, tried the gelatin mold and actually gagged. She tried to be polite about it, but my sister saw her reaction and completely lost it. She started yelling about how nobody in the family supports her and how we're all stuck in the past with our unoriginal food. She even accused me of sabotaging her dishes by not hyping them up enough to everyone. At this point, half the table was trying not to laugh, and the other half was just staring at their plates, probably wondering how we got here. My sister ended up storming out of the house, but not before saying something along the lines of, "You'll regret not appreciating my vision when I'm famous." She left most of her food behind, which my cousin and I quietly threw out after dinner. The rest of the night actually turned out pretty nice once the tension was gone. My dad's emergency ham was a lifesaver, and everyone agreed that next year we're either going to a restaurant or just skipping Thanksgiving altogether. So now I'm sitting here wondering how this even became my life. I'll post photos later because you all need to see the turkey gelatin mold to believe it. But for now, I'm off to grab a drink or 3 with my cousin to laugh, cry over everything that went down. This Thanksgiving was truly something else, and I don't know whether to feel relieved it's over or brace myself for whatever fresh chaos my sister has planned for next year. Stay tuned for photos. It's going to be worth it. AmITheAsshole for telling my husband that he absolutely ruined the birth of our child. Hi everyone. Our daughter is now 8 weeks old. So obviously, this whole argument has gone on a very, very long time. We both have been holding grudges, and neither of us think that we are wrong. My husband does not know I am posting this, so I am going to keep it as anonymous as possible. So when I got pregnant with my daughter, my husband started in immediately telling me that I should have a home birth. I really do not know why he was so adamant about it, but he was. At first, I brushed him off and told him I would think about it because I was only 6 weeks pregnant, and the birth seemed far off. Of course, it came quickly, and my husband would literally speak over me at doctor's appointments when my doctor would ask if I had a birth plan. This caused a few arguments between us in those 39 weeks of pregnancy, but I never really changed my mind. Eventually, my husband's mother sat down and talked to me, and she told me all of the reasons why they did not want me to go to a hospital for the birth. I expressed my concerns about, the safety of the baby and myself, but just like my husband, she brushed me off. I ended up telling my husband that I would take myself to the hospital when it was time and that I did not want a home birth. He acted as if he didn't hear me. We met with a doula who was also very pushy. I felt overwhelmed and not supported at all. I was 36 weeks at that point. So when I went into labor, I was 39 weeks, and I absolutely begged my husband to take me to the hospital where my doctor is. He wouldn't. He spoke to me condescendingly and called the doula instead. I was in labor for about 3 days, active labor for around the last 22 hours. I cried the whole time. I just felt something was wrong. I was scared, and oftentimes they left me alone. The doula told me that if active pushing and labor reached 24 hours, I had to go into the hospital. I remember thinking that I could not decide which was worse, staying in labor for another 2 hours or having my baby right there. When she was finally out, I don't even remember wanting to hold her. I just remember crying out of relief. Obviously, I am okay now, but I did not have a good experience. On my first appointment after birth with my doctor, she was very shocked I had the baby. She was concerned. I was so upset. I told my husband that he absolutely ruined it for me. I truly never want to go through that again. I hear mothers say that they forget all the pain the second they have the baby, but I didn't. I love my daughter so much, but it was horrible, and it was entirely his fault. So I told him that several times. He rolls his eyes every time and tells me how mothers are strong and how I am not trying to be strong. I told him that if we ever have another baby, which he wants, that I will never do a home birth ever again. His response is, "We'll see." I cannot possibly be TA here, can I? Everyone around me is acting like this is so normal, but it's not, is it? Am I the asshole for telling a plus-size woman that I love being skinny? I dread going to my childhood friend's birthday party every year. We moved apart a decade ago, and even though I'll always care deeply about her, we are very different people now, and her friend group reflects this. She has one friend, let's call her Amanda, who, without fail, has to comment on my weight every single time she sees me. "You're so skinny. Do you even eat? Does your BF care that you don't have curves? Your legs are like sticks." For the record, I eat plenty. I just have a fast metabolism, which keeps me super thin. I keep a strong face when Amanda says these things to me, but truthfully, she's touching on my worst insecurities, and it makes me dread going to these parties every year. I was considering not going this year until I talked to my mom about it. My mom had what I thought was a great idea on how to deal with Amanda. She suggested I pretend she's giving me a compliment. My mom told me, if Amanda says you're so skinny, just smile and say, "Thanks. I love being skinny." And if she looks disappointed at your response, you'll have proven she was trying to insult you. I thought this was great advice. However, something I had failed to mention to my mom was that Amanda was overweight. I didn't realize this meant I was entering potential AH territory. Anyway, the dreaded birthday party day comes, and of course, no surprise, Amanda immediately looks at my arms and comments on how tiny they are. I ignored this comment. Then later on in the day, we were standing in a group together and she was eyeing me up and down. She chuckled to herself and said, "God, you're so skinny." And I thought, okay, here it is. Here's my moment. I turned to her, smiled, and said, "Thanks. I love being skinny." And I'm completely serious here. She slaps me in the face. I was in complete shock, just staring back at her, mouth hanging open with my hand on my cheek. Everyone was silent. She suddenly bursts into tears and runs out of the room. Two of her friends chase her. Only one other girl and my childhood friend asked if I was okay, but everyone else was just shooting me dirty looks. I promptly left the party, which sucked because I had a 2-hour commute and had planned to sleep over. The next day, I was texting with my childhood friend about it. She basically thinks that even though Amanda shouldn't have slapped me, I was insensitive for saying, "I love being skinny," to a plus-size person. I argued that Amanda has been consistently insensitive to me at every party, and I didn't comment on her body, only my own. She told me that it's different because being skinny is socially acceptable and that Amanda wouldn't usually do something like this, but I triggered her with my insult. My mom thinks I am in the right, but this was all her idea, so of course she does, lol. So AITA, for what I said to Amanda, am I the asshole for refusing to cook in our kitchen because my wife decorated it? My wife and I, 37M, 35F, bought a house together 2 years ago. She had a laundry list of things she absolutely had to have, but I only cared about one thing. I wanted a good kitchen with plenty of room to work. I've been cooking my whole life, and I cook all the meals. We found a beautiful house that we both love, and everything was fine. She added her flair to most of the rooms. I let her choose the paint and furniture and wall art. We both paid our share on everything, and the house is gorgeous. I love it. She has great taste. However, a few months ago, she started talking about wanting to do the kitchen. I was open to it. It was now the only room in the house that hadn't gotten personalized, and it made it stick out. The problem was that she wanted to put random knickknacks all over the place. Every day she was coming from the store with some new item, baskets with fake fruit, big ceramic pots for flour, we don't bake, book-sized wooden blocks with sweet sayings on them, a wine rack and espresso machine, we don't drink either, vinaigrette decanters with glittery liquid in them, decorative plates that sit on the cabinet shelves in front of the real dishes. It all came to a head when I found that she had put the toaster oven in the under cabinet and moved my big old chopping block to above the fridge so she could put a full serving tray with 4 cups, saucers, and a kettle set up in the middle of the counter. Like we're hosting afternoon tea. We never do that. I told her I was not on board. The kitchen is the perfect size to get cooking done. I use the toaster oven 3 times a day, and my butcher's block lives in that spot. It lives there because I use it all the time. I asked her where there was even space left for me to put down my 20 by 28 butcher's block. She started showing what could be moved over to accommodate the block, and I said that I wasn't moving stuff around every single time I want to cut a melon. She kept saying it wasn't a big deal and I'd get used to it. But I stood firm on wanting all this random stuff out of where I essentially work. She started crying and saying stuff like, "You don't get to just decide what's what." We tried talking about it again a few times, and it always ends with her crying. I don't yell or anything. She just refuses to accept that I don't want a cute kitchen more than I want a useful one. I haven't cooked a full meal in our kitchen in 2 months. I make a few days worth at a time. Rice or potatoes and a tray full of proteins, bags of salad, frozen soup. I pack it up in the fridge to eat as needed. She's invited to eat any of it, but she doesn't like leftovers. She recently realized she's gaining weight, wasting tons of time in drive-through lines and paying lots of money for food she doesn't even enjoy. Last night, we tried once again to talk about the kitchen, and it ended with me saying, "If it's so important, then just let me have the kitchen how it needs to be to cook right." She started crying again and accused me of blackmailing her health to win an argument. I gave up after that, and we both had to leave for work before we could talk it over. I feel dead set that, as the person actually using the kitchen, cooking tools should not have to compete for space with useless shit, and I refuse to cook in such a cumbersome way. What do y'all think? Edit, saw a few people asking about my work situation. I work from home. Many days I have to get up before dawn to pick up paperwork at a nearby job site, but my main job is done at home. Edit 2. Apparently, people think that cooks a lot means he thinks he's an amazing cook. I never once said I was some great chef. I'm sure I'm average as hell. I do use flour for coating and thickening stuff, but I don't need a whole container's worth on hand at all times. One bag lasts me months, and I was always told it's best to leave it in the bag it came in so it sits in the dark pantry. Maybe I'm ignorant, but I can only imagine a baker needs 12 cups of flour ready to go. As far as the toaster oven, I use it to toast rolls, bolillos, and extra crispy tortillas. The regular oven takes too long to preheat for just a stack of tortillas/rolls. I eat them daily. Am I the asshole for ditching my girlfriend at a restaurant, which contributed to her failing her probationary period at work? Have been in a relationship with my girl since university. Last September, Cindy's company went under. She took this hard because she loved her workplace, loved her colleagues, and loved her boss. Unfortunately, they just weren't making that much money, so the plug was pulled. When Cindy came home and delivered the news to me, I asked if she wanted me to introduce her to my boss. Having the same major, we work in the same field, and my company is almost always hiring. Cindy said yes, and I texted my boss on the spot. After delivering her CV to him and a short interview process, she was hired in a 3-month probationary position. I was really excited to be working with Cindy. We could save money on gas by carpooling, spend more time together, and have lunch together too. Unfortunately, things did not pan out. To be frank, Cindy was a horrible employee. She showed up to the office 15 to 20 minutes late virtually every day. I had to give up on carpooling with her because I have a morning meeting and I need to get to work 15 minutes early every day. Cindy's favorite activity at work was opening up a blank Google Doc and looking at her phone under her desk. The hour we get for lunch was often an hour and a half for Cindy, and she really accomplished nothing in her time there. This continued for 3 months. Last Monday was a rare occasion where Cindy was actually ready on time to go to work together. Perhaps this was because of my gentle urging for her to get her shit together, or perhaps it was because her probationary period was ending soon, but we were able to carpool. We went out to lunch together, and Cindy ate way too slowly. I was looking at the clock and encouraging her to get a move on, but at the end of the meal, right when we had to leave to make it back on time, Cindy decided she wanted another refill of her soda. I told her time was up, but she was adamant that she absolutely needed another refill. To make matters worse, the restaurant was crowded and we couldn't flag down a server. I put the cash for the meal and a tip on the table, and I told Cindy that I was leaving, with or without her. Cindy played chicken with me here, thinking that if she refused to move, I'd have no choice but to wait. But I walked to my car and drove back. Cindy showed up 20 minutes later, visually flustered. The restaurant was a 10-minute walk away, so I'm pretty sure she did end up getting her refill. She has been furious with me since. Last Friday, Cindy got her final judgment for her probationary period. Due to poor punctuality and general lack of direction, my company decided not to hire her for a full-time position. Cindy blames me. She says I made her late and that I ruined everything. Last night, she asked how she was supposed to pay her part of the rent without a job. And I responded, "Yes, that's a good question. How will you be paying?" This threw oil on the proverbial fire, and now she doesn't even want to fight about it anymore. Was I an asshole for what I did here? Update. Am I the asshole for ditching my girlfriend at a restaurant, which contributed to her failing her probationary period at work? Last week, I talked about how my girlfriend, Cindy 6F, blew her probationary period for the job I got her completely. She was chronically late, unproductive, and she took 90-minute marathon lunch breaks. She claims that I sabotaged her because instead of being late when getting back to work, I left her at a restaurant when she wanted another refill of her soda. Anyway, Cindy decided that she was going to take some time off of work for her mental health. Knowing that she had absolutely no savings, I asked how she was going to contribute to rent, groceries, and utilities. But Cindy said that wasn't my concern. I decided to be upfront and flat out tell her not to expect me to financially support her. She responded by calling me a low provider, whatever that means. It's also not right because I'm more of a no provider. I'm not into arrangements where I financially support a woman for companionship. At this point, I knew that our relationship was basically over, but I decided that I'd stay in the apartment we rent for the next 2 months, as we have paid our rent in full until the end of May, and then leave. Then Cindy began taking steps to actively sabotage me at work. For example, last Friday, when I was getting ready for work, I couldn't find my shoes. After letting me look for them for 15 minutes, Cindy finally said that she washed them. I'm fairly sure Cindy has never washed anything other than a plate or her own laundry, but on Friday morning, she abruptly decided to wash my shoes. Right? They were soaking wet. I had to wear an old pair of Crocs that were 2 sizes too small to the office that day. On my way home, I bought new shoes and kept them in my car. Then Cindy began spamming me with texts during a meeting on Saturday, one I had told her I was having, saying there was a guy banging on our door. She insisted I needed to come home right away. I checked our Ring camera and saw nothing. When I texted her back saying so, she said it must have been the neighbor or something. It's worth mentioning here that I can see the neighbor's door on the camera too, and nobody was banging on it either. I got the picture of what was going on, and realizing the next escalation would be having my tires slashed or brakes cut. After work that day, I went back to our apartment, gathered my belongings, and left. Cindy naturally went off the rails, but I got out safely. Now, I'm at my buddy's house for a few days until I can find a new living situation. Thank you for all the advice you gave me. I'm sure this can act as a cautionary tale in various ways. Unfortunately, I'm kind of out of it after all this drama, so I'll leave that part up to you. Am I the asshole for getting into a heated argument with my friend after I found out she was talking down on our lesbian neighbor, who is honestly one of the nicest people I know? Hey Reddit, so IF26 needs some advice. I share an apartment with my friend L, F27, and we've been living together for about a year now. We've had our ups and downs, but overall we get along pretty well. That was until something happened a few days ago that really threw me off. We live in this apartment building, and one of our neighbors, C, F28, is a lesbian. I don't know her super well, but she's honestly one of the nicest people I've met. She's always so friendly, says hi when we pass in the hall, and even helped me grab a package from the front desk once when I wasn't home. We've had small talks, and she's always been nothing but sweet. Anyway, the other day, Elle and I were sitting on the couch after work, just talking like we usually do. Out of nowhere, Elle starts talking about C. She says, I dunno, there's something off about her. I asked her what she meant, and she just goes on this rant about how C is always way too friendly and how it makes her uncomfortable. And then she says, honestly, I think it's weird that she's a lesbian. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. I swear, I thought I was hearing things. I asked her to repeat herself, and she just doubled down. She went on about how it was unnatural and how C was trying too hard to make people like her. I was stunned. C is honestly the nicest person, and I've never once felt uncomfortable around her. So hearing Elle talk about her like that made my blood boil. I snapped. I told her it wasn't cool to talk about someone like that, especially when they've done nothing but be kind. I said she was being rude and that it wasn't right to judge someone based on their sexuality. I also told her that if she could talk about C like that, I was honestly worried how she'd feel about me if I ever came out as anything other than straight. Elle got really defensive. She said I was overreacting, that she didn't mean it like that, and that I was just being too sensitive. She even said, I'm not homophobic, I just think it's weird. She kept going on about how she didn't mean to offend me, but I was honestly so mad at that point that I just couldn't let it slide. We ended up yelling at each other, and now things are so tense between us. I feel like I stood up for what's right, but now I'm second-guessing myself. Did I overreact? Should I have just let it go? Or was she out of line for what she said? AITA for getting so upset and confronting her about it? Am I the asshole for laughing in my sister-in-law's face when she DNA tested my daughter? I, 30 male, have a daughter who's 6. I am not biologically related to her at all. There is no blood relation between us. I was friends with her mother for most all of my childhood. We were never involved romantically and were always just friends. She had her daughter at 23 with her 25-year-old husband. When my daughter was a newborn, about 3 months technically, both her mother and father were killed. I won't go into too much detail for privacy reasons, but it was a workplace shooting. My friend and her husband had worked in the same building and were both killed. Both my friend and her husband had grown up with less than ideal families and didn't have any siblings, so there wasn't any next of kin for their daughter to go to. However, because I was close with them, I was able to adopt her. Even though I had been iffy about the idea of kids, I didn't want their daughter to grow up in foster care or around Pete and have a connection to her bio parents, so I stepped in. My parents and siblings know that my daughter is not my actual daughter, biologically speaking. My daughter, I'll call her Lily for the post, also knows that she's adopted. I never really hid the fact that she was adopted. She knows her parents are dead and were killed by a bad man, but I'm saving the details for when she's older. Lily does not look like me at all. She looks exactly like her mother and biological dad. Most people assume that I'm her bio dad, and that she just took after her mom. I don't ever really correct this when and if people assume this because it just seems unnecessary. My brother has been with his fiancée for about 2 years now. A few weeks ago, we were all meeting up at my parents' house, and my sister-in-law saw an old picture of me, my friend, and her husband. She pointed to my friend and asked who she was, and I explained that was Lily's mother. Syl got quiet and stood in front of the picture for a while. I didn't think much of it. To clarify, she knows my friend died, but I guess didn't know that she had been married or that Lily is not my bio daughter. I suppose she assumed my daughter was mine and my friend's biological daughter. My sister-in-law got a DNA test done on my daughter behind my back. She used my brother's DNA for the test, and when it came back that they weren't related, she knew that meant me and Lily weren't related. She came up to me with the results and waved them in my face, saying that I was taking care of a dead woman's affair baby. She said this to me in front of my daughter. I just stared at her for a while before bursting out laughing at this. I told her I knew Lily wasn't my biological daughter, and that this thing called adoption exists. Her face went red and she stormed off. My brother is mad I embarrassed his fiancée, but I said she embarrassed herself by DNA testing a kid that isn't hers and then parading the results up to me. What did she want me to do? What was her goal with this? Did she want me to break down and abandon my daughter? My brother said she thought she was doing the right thing and called me an asshole. I don't feel like the asshole, especially considering my sister-in-law was the one who stuck her nose where it doesn't belong. I'm asking for Reddit opinions, mostly just for validation. So, was I the asshole? Update. My brother lied to my sister-in-law about everything. TLDR spoiler. My brother thought I had been having an affair with Lily's mom and thought I was Lily's bio dad. He tricked sister-in-law into believing that I was in a relationship with Lily's mom and was Lily's bio dad. Sister-in-law then saw the picture of Lily's mom and her husband and assumed Lily was an affair child between the two of them and was being led on to believe that I was Lily's bio dad. My sister-in-law ended up coming to my house and apologizing as well as telling me the full story. My brother put her up to the DNA test. When I first adopted Lily, my brother, for some reason, believed that Lily was my bio daughter. He thought that me and Lily's mom were together and just weren't telling anyone. He believed that when she got pregnant, Lily's mom told me that Lily was mine and that she was going to just say that it was her husband's. And I went along with it because I didn't really want kids. Sister-in-law was under the impression that I believed I was Lily's bio dad. She saw the picture of Lily's mom and me, and after asking for clarification on who she was, assumed we were together in it, and then got suspicious when she saw that the other guy in the picture, Lily's actual bio dad, looked a lot like Lily. I also want to clarify, I didn't tell her that Lily's bio dad was in the picture because she had specifically pointed to Lily's mom, and I assumed she knew that Lily was adopted. I didn't know my brother had been telling her lies for nearly 2 years. She got the DNA test out of her own suspicions, and my brother helped her with it because he thought it would reveal that I was actually Lily's bio dad. He manipulated her into thinking that it would clear the air of suspicion, when really he was just trying to prove that I was really Lily's bio dad and lying about the reasons for adoption. Well, of course, the results proved I wasn't Lily's bio dad, and that my brother was wrong. My brother felt too embarrassed to confess to his fiancée that he had lied about the circumstances, which is why sister-in-law confronted me with the results. My sister-in-law also apologized for showing me the results in front of my daughter. She told me that her mom had an affair and cheated on her father, got pregnant with another man's kid, and let her father believe the kid was his. Her father was devastated by this when he found out, and she grew very resentful of women who do that to their spouses. She had wanted to sit me down and talk to me about it without my daughter, but when she saw me with my daughter, she got angry, thinking I was being led on to believe I was raising my daughter when I was actually raising another man's kid. And she ended up exploding and immediately waved the results in my face. My sister-in-law does feel very guilty, and she's angry at my brother for lying to her. I'm not angry at her for doing the test because she thought she was doing the right thing. I also forgave her for the way she told me about the results, because clearly affairs are a sensitive subject for her, and I can understand why she would have exploded like that. I'm pretty sure she plans to break up with my brother now, and I don't blame her. When I called and asked my brother about this, he admitted it. When I asked why he would think this, he said that he couldn't think of a reason why a man who had been against having kids at the time would willingly adopt a baby without having a blood connection to it. He told sister-in-law that I was Lily's bio dad and was aware of the fact. He took it a step further and said that me and Lily's mom were together at the time of Lily's conception. Both me and my parents are going low contact with my brother for a while now. I know I will forgive my brother eventually, but I can't do that right now. He believed I was low enough to have an affair with a married woman, get her pregnant, take no responsibility, allow her to pass off the kid as another man's, and then only take responsibility because her mom died. Update 2. Sister-in-law is now ex-sister-in-law. I don't know if multiple updates are allowed for this sub. If not, take this down and I'll post to my profile. Some people were wondering what happened with my brother and sister-in-law. Well, she dumped him. They tried to make it work, but that only lasted a few days, and she ended up giving him the ring back. My brother got shit-faced drunk on my front lawn in the middle of the night. I was pissed because Lily had school the next morning and this woke her up. My brother was yelling insults to both me and my daughter. We called police, and he spent the night in jail for drunken disturbance. I believe the official charge was something like that. I sure as hell pressed charges because he was saying some borderline threatening statements to me and my daughter. I don't think it's enough to qualify for a restraining order, but if it is, I'll get a temporary one. On a more positive note, Lily is doing well. She's getting straight A's in every subject and is excited about her first ever science project. She's been talking my ear off about it. Send help, lol.